Welcome to this explainer, everyone. Okay, let's dive right in. Today, we're unpacking a literal survival toolkit for the modern mind. We're looking at Sharon Lebell's incredibly powerful, modernized take on the ancient Stoic philosopher Epictetus from her book, The Art of Living. And listen, right off the bat, I want to frame this for you. We are not treating this like some dry academic theory. No, this is high-stakes adversity management. This is the nitty-gritty of how we actually survive, how we function, and how we find genuine peace when life just gets incredibly hard. Because the sheer gravity of what we're talking about here, it's massive. Take a look at these words, pulled back from the brink of despair and even suicide. That is a direct description of the experiences of real soldiers deployed in Iraq and Afghanistan. They somehow got their hands on the exact teachings we're about to explore, and it literally pulled them back from the edge. So make no mistake, this ancient philosophy is actively saving lives today, right now, in some of the most extreme, acute, and life-threatening conditions you could possibly imagine. But you don't need to be in a literal war zone to need this kind of corrective medicine, you know? It works just as well for everyday disaffected souls. I mean, look at Sharon Lebell herself, the author who interpreted these teachings for us, went through her own harrowing descent into darkness. She went from being this Ivy League wonderkin to literally lying in a fetal position, just completely felled by depression, abject squalor, and addiction. And Epictetus saved her life too. It's just a remarkably powerful testament to how this philosophy can pull literally anyone out of the dark.
So let's get into it. Section 1, the foundation, the dichotomy of control.
To understand how to actually survive adversity, we have to start with the absolute core rule of this toolkit. It's the one concept that makes every other piece of advice work, the dichotomy of control. On one side, we have things entirely within our control. Our opinions, our desires, our judgments, our choices. That is our domain. We have to focus our energy there with absolute authority. And then there's everything else, the things completely outside our control. Our body, our wealth, our reputation, our status, what some stranger thinks of us. Honestly, we just need to dismiss our obsession with all of that. Epictetus basically says that inner peace is only possible when you accept this exact distinction. Visually separating these two categories in your mind and focusing entirely on your own business is the ultimate secret to peace.
Which brings us to Section 2, the diagnosis, 3 soul afflictions.
Okay, so now that we've established that core rule, we have to ask ourselves a pretty tough question. Why do we constantly break it? Well, practically every modern problem we face has a direct, actionable Stoic prescription. A tonic, if you will. Check out this diagnostic breakdown. For disordered thinking, your tonic is radical acceptance. For our obsessive attachment to externals, it's detachment with care. And for that pesky blame reflex, the cure is self-reflection. Let's really walk through each of these deeply, because applying these 3 tonics, that is how we actually change our lives. Let's start with the very first tonic for disordered thinking, radical acceptance. And I need to be absolutely crystal clear here. Accepting a harsh reality is not about lazy acquiescence. You aren't just giving up or pretending, hey, it's all good. Because, as Lebell points out from her own deep grief and the real tragedies of her loved ones, it absolutely is not all good. Hardship is very real. Radical acceptance is a clear-eyed, unflinching embrace of reality exactly as it is, which, paradoxically, gives rise to what Lebell calls big gratitude. It is literally facing the hurricane without pretending it's a sunny day at the beach.
And that leads us straight to this concept. Many meanings, all happening at once. That rhythmic truth is Lebell's way of explaining that, well, it's not all good, but it's sure not all bad either. Every single moment of our lives contains both joy and devastation simultaneously. Love and pain, wonder and sorrow, they exist right next to each other. And radically accepting that wild complexity is exactly what keeps us grounded when things get crazy.
Moving on to our second tonic, detachment with care. We are just so prone to attaching ourselves to things outside our control, right? So how do we fix that without turning into cold, unfeeling robots? By caring deeply, by loving intensely, but refusing to cling. It's this beautiful understanding that when our possessions or even our loved ones are eventually gone, they haven't been stolen from us. They have simply been, as the Stoics say, returned to where they came from. Loving without clinging is literally the only way we can survive the inevitable losses of life intact.
And this brings us right to the third affliction, the blame reflex, and its heavy-hitting historical cure. Epictetus said, "It is not events themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them." Just let that sink in for a second. It brilliantly illustrates that our emotional disturbances do not come from the outside world. They come from inside our own minds. When things go wrong, our knee-jerk reaction is to point fingers at other people, or just completely beat ourselves up. But true moral progress, that starts the very second we extinguish the impulse to blame. Change your judgment, and I promise you, you change your emotion. All right, Section 3, Practical Wisdom, the Archetypes.
So let's look at how all this practical wisdom actually manifests in human behavior. I want you to look at this spectrum and honestly ask yourself, where do you fall? Are you the occupatus, preoccupied, externally focused, just constantly anxious about wealth, status, and your reputation? Highly reactive to the world around you? Or are you closer to the Stoic sage? This person is internally focused, they are genuinely free from their external circumstances, and deeply thoughtful in how they respond to everything. The whole psychology of living a good life is entirely dependent on shifting away from that reactive, anxious preoccupation and moving toward true internal freedom. But how do we actually get there? Well, we use this actionable checklist. Focus on what you can control. Accept what you cannot. See every single difficulty as an opportunity to practice your patience and courage. And most importantly, aim for progress over perfection. You do not have to become a flawless Stoic sage overnight. Seriously, nobody is expecting that. We are simply aiming to be awakening students, just making small, consistent improvements. And those little tweaks, they will eventually lead you to complete transformation. Which leads us to our final part, Section 4, the application, the decisional instant. We're bringing all of this incredibly powerful philosophy directly into the exact moment you are experiencing right now. Lebell calls this the decisional instant. This right here, this very second, is the locus of the only true power you have in this world. Everything you do, everything you say, everything you think, it all happens right now, and then it radiates out into your future. You cannot control the past. You definitely cannot control the external world. So I challenge you, look at your life right now. Realize exactly where your true power exists. And ask yourself, what are you going to do at the moment?